$26. That's how much you spend if you take a cab from the lobbying company Gephardt to and from Capitol Hill. Even though Gephardt has collected at least $4 million from Taiwan authorities since 2013, they still ask for reimbursement from taxi rides.
Yes, every ride counts. Through Gephardt and many others, millions of Taiwan people's money has been funneled into the pockets of US politicians. Why would the Taiwan authorities be so keen to send money to the US?
The answer is Nancy Pelosi. And why is China so angry about Pelosi's visit to the island?
To answer these questions, we need to go over some basic history. Taiwan has been part of China for the past 1,800 years, but for a period in the early 17th century, the island was occupied by Dutch and Spanish colonists, and later, in the 19th century, the Japanese took over the land. When World War II ended, Taiwan was returned to the motherland under terms of Cairo Declaration and Potsdam Declaration. But a civil war broke out in China. The Chiang Kai-shek-led Kuomintang retreated to the island in 1949, while the People's Republic of China was founded. But both sides agree that Taiwan is part of China and that there is only one China. The One China principle has also been recognized a universal consensus by international community. 181 countries have established diplomatic relations with China on the basis of the One China principle. In the 1970s, the US itself established diplomatic relations and recognized in joint communiques that there is but one China. China could not reopen diplomatic relations without the US recognizing this basic aspect of China's sovereignty.
What would the US do if Texas were to secede from the United States and declare independence with support from some other nations?
That might not be a good analogy because what the US does isn't helping anyone, but rather using the Taiwan question as a pawn to contain China and further its own interests in the region. As Douglas MacArthur famously said, Taiwan is an unthinkable aircraft carrier.
If we look at history, we find the US have been leading the aggression against Taiwan. The US was the first country to attack Taiwan with a warship in 1867. It was supporting the Japanese invasion of Taiwan in 1874 and selling weapons to Japan during the First Sino-Japanese War, forcing China to cede Taiwan to Japan in the late 19th centuries.
Pelosi's visit is just one more example that proves this point. What has the speaker achieved in the visit? A. She got hundreds of Taiwanese products blocked from exporting to the Chinese mainland. B. She provoked military tensions that risk escalating into a war between two nuclear powers. C. The US lost opportunities to work with China in fields like climate change and the fight against drugs. That's why South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol avoided Nancy Pelosi after she visited the island. US President Biden has said the US will not change its One China principle and does not support Taiwan independence. It is either hypocrisy or simply shows how weak and divided the US government has become.
The visit has proved bad for Taiwan, neighboring countries, and the US itself. But there are people who are happy. We looked through the records from the US Department of Justice and found that Taiwan authorities have spent over $3 million a year lobbying US politicians.
Look closer into the files, we notice Gephardt. Remember the company we mentioned at the very beginning? The president and CEO of the company, Richard Gephardt, has close relations with Nancy Pelosi. When Gephardt ran for president in 2004, Nancy Pelosi endorsed him, and he was succeeded by Pelosi as House Minority Leader.
There have been claims that Taiwan has paid Pelosi over $3 million for her visit. We cannot verify the number, but the one thing is certain: the US foreign policy is for sale.